notice how our Lord, instructing his disciples, instructing all of us, says, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. This is a very interesting statement, especially for the people listening to our Lord at the time that he spoke these words, because at that time in the Jewish culture, it was the scribes and the Pharisees that were looked up to as being the most religious. They were the ones who focused on the law. They were the ones who were always praying. They were always in the temple. And they were very good at observing the external precepts of the law, fasting on a regular basis. I think they used to fast 3 times a week. And also, tithing, even the minutest detail. So in other words, they appeared to take the law very seriously. They appeared to be the most zealous ones in observing the law. But as we know, they lacked the weightier matters of the law. So even though they did all these external things, they lacked charity. So who are we to look to as an example of holiness for ourselves? So we don't have the scribes and the Pharisees. In other words, who is our model of holiness or righteousness? And of course, we have to say our Lord. But in addition to our Lord, the saints. So the Blessed Virgin Mary, Saint Joseph, but all the saints. And this is why it's so beneficial for us to read the lives of the saints, because when we do, we are inspired, we are motivated to want to imitate them. We don't necessarily go to the same extent that they did. We may not be called to the vocations that they were called to, but they show us what it means to be truly Catholic, to be truly Christian, to dedicate ourselves totally to God. So they're a great inspiration for us. Something that many of the saints encourage us to do is to reflect on the lives of the saints, to read the lives of the saints. Now notice what our Lord, he goes on and basically he starts to explain what righteousness really is. I mean, if you were asked, what is righteousness? What is wickedness? There's many things we could say about that. And as we heard in today's first reading, if somebody who's righteous, if they commit a wicked deed, then it's kind of like they lose all their righteousness. It's kind of like falling into mortal sin. But at the same time, we can also say that there are certain individuals who are generally good people. They try to be good. And occasionally they may fall into sin, yes, or they may commit sin. But there are also some people who are kind of mean and wicked and selfish and manipulative and they don't really care about others, and sometimes they purposely enjoy causing problems for other people. So we have a sense of righteousness, a sense of wickedness, but where is the cutoff line? In other words, where are we, between these two extremes? We're probably somewhere in there, and hopefully we're closer to being righteous, but the question is, what exactly is righteousness? And once again, we need to look to the example of the saints. But our Lord, what he does in today's gospel reading and in other places is very, very significant, because it's not just our external actions, our external behavior that determines whether we are righteous or wicked. It's also our attitude, our interior disposition, the kind of attitude that we have towards others. This too determines what kind of a person we are. So, as our Lord points out, you've heard that it was said, you shall not murder, and whoever murders is liable to judgment. But notice how our Lord goes on. In other words, he's internalizing the law. He's saying your interior dispositions are also very, very significant, and simply by having the wrong interior disposition, you may not make it. So he goes on to say, but I say to you that if you are angry with a brother or sister, you will be liable to judgment. Just for being angry. You may not manifest that anger, but you need to get rid of that anger. And if you insult a brother or sister, you will be liable to the council. So, this is not just an internal disposition, but you're openly insulting someone, damaging that person, hurting their feelings, possibly damaging their reputation in public. And if you say, you fool, you will be liable to the hell of fire. So simply calling someone a fool. So our Lord is saying that the criteria is very, very strict, and it's not just our external behavior, but our interior dispositions. And usually when we have the wrong interior disposition, these things will come out. We will lose our cool, we will manifest our true nature. And then notice how our Lord goes on to say, well, if somebody has something against you, in other words, if you've offended a brother or sister, well, leave your offering, when you come to the altar, you can't really offer. In other words, your offering is not acceptable to God. First be reconciled. In other words, make reparation. Try to be reconciled with the one that you have offended. And the whole point is, we offer up prayers, we offer up sacrifices, we unite in offering the sacrifice of the Mass, but how effective is that offering? Well, it depends upon our disposition. It depends upon our righteousness. The more righteous someone is, the more efficacious, beneficial the Mass becomes. So yes, the value of the Mass is infinite, but how much we gain by it, or how much we can apply to the individual that we're offering the Mass for, or the individuals that we offer the Mass for, depends upon our dispositions. Are we righteous? Are we holy? So when the saints offered Mass, the saintly priest offered Mass, it was very, very efficacious. It would draw down an abundance of God's graces. This is also why we need to pray for priests, that they will be holy. But also your participation, how much you get out of the Mass, depends upon the dispositions that you have in your heart, whether you are righteous or lacking in righteousness. So if we want to benefit by our participation in the Mass, if we want to truly benefit by our prayers, if we want to have better relationships, then yes, let us examine ourselves and let us do what we can to root out all those wicked inclinations that we have, and let us try to practice true charity towards our neighbor.